What you're about to hear will endear Chris Hilton to LSU fans forever. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts. Of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. And thank you for watching every weekday on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. LSU season didn't go as planned. 7-6, a team that had so much expectation. Preseason top 10, got all the way up to number 3 after beating Clemson. National championship expectations. I remember being at SEC football media days in July and talking to Garrett Nussmeier, Whit Weeks, and Chris Hilton, and all of them were very honest about this team's championship expectations. Notice I mentioned Chris Hilton, who I had a chance to talk to this week as he is preparing for the Combine and the NFL Draft, because he went through an incredible month of December and into January, where after playing his final game for the Tigers in the Texas Bowl, he participated in 4 All-Star games. That is a record. The Hula Bowl, the American Bowl, East-West Shrine, and then the Senior Bowl. You're going to hear Chris talk about that stretch in just a second, getting ready for this draft. But the thing I want to lead with is something that is going to endear Chris Hilton to LSU fans forever. In my conversation with Chris, keeping in mind this is a guy who came to LSU as a very highly regarded athlete. In some of the recruiting services, he was projected as a 5-star prospect. In the composite, he was a 4-star, the 4th best player in Louisiana. But my goodness, he had a massive career at nearby Zachary, and there was so much expectation when he showed up on campus in that great receiver class that included guys like Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. Well, we know Chris Hilton's career didn't really pan out the way many thought that it would. In his entire career, for his career, Chris Hilton ended up catching just 41 balls for 780 yards and 6 touchdowns. It's not what we all expected. It's not what Chris Hilton expected. And in this era of transfer portal, of NIL, it would have been so easy at any point for Chris Hilton to leave for some place that might have featured him more and given him more targets and more opportunity. And I asked Chris Hilton point blank this week, did you ever consider leaving LSU?
No. Like, I'm from Louisiana, you know what I'm saying? I grew up 30 minutes away from LSU, you feel me? So yeah, even though times got tough, you know what I'm saying, I was never going to run away. Like, I was just going to embrace it.
Even though times got tough, I was never going to run away. I was just going to embrace it. He never considered leaving. And you know what? I believe it. Especially when he made the decision. Remember, 2024 in fall camp, if you're an everydayer, you've heard me talk about this before. In 2024, Chris Hilton was the offensive standout of that fall camp. He was dominant in that fall camp. And in the last Saturday practice before the opener that season, when they went and played against Southern Cal, Chris Hilton, I watched it. It's seared into my memory. There's 400-yard football fields, basically in a rectangle, 2 on top of each other, and we were on the field nearest Skip Bertman Drive, close to the facility. The media is in the middle of basically the cross between the 4 fields, and I'm looking to my right, front left corner of the end zone, and Nussmeier throws a ball to Chris Hilton, who goes up and makes an incredible catch, and he lands on the defensive back's foot, and he starts limping down the sideline, and I went, oh no. And that injury ended up costing Chris Hilton the bulk of his season, when he would have been the breakout offensive player in 2024, a season where Kyron Lacey and Aaron Anderson ended up being LSU's leading receivers that year. Chris was poised for breakout. And then after that season, LSU goes in the transfer portal and they add Berrien Brown and they add Nick Anderson and then Aaron Anderson and Xavier Thomas are returning and Kyle Parker was coming back who had gotten a lot of reps. Point is, it would have been so easy for Chris Hilton to be like, you know what? At my last year, I'm going to go somewhere where I know I'm going to be featured. Never even considered leaving. Just one of the things we talk about so much here that is an advantage. And I know there's a lot of people who have found this show throughout the whole Kiffin saga. Some of you might be Ole Miss fans. I know a lot of Alabama fans watch as well. And this may not make sense, but I hope I can help illustrate it a little bit. Is that I say it all the time, the greatest advantage LSU has is the dirt. There are people who grow up here. There are kids who grow up here will give their arm just to put on that uniform because it's just all they know. Will Campbell was like that. Clearly, Chris Hilton was like that. No matter if it's good or bad or however it's going, like they can't imagine themselves playing anywhere else or wearing any other uniform. And I asked Chris, I said, look, as your career went along the way it did, I said, did you have any regrets?
Regrets? No, not really. Mainly lessons. When I look back at like my past 5 years, I feel like God always had a plan for me, and I feel like it went exactly how it was supposed to. Like I feel like I had to go through those 5 years to get to where I am right now. So as far as regrets, no, I don't have any.
Can you give me an example of a lesson you learned going through something you went through?
Really just is about perseverance. Like that's been pretty much the main point was perseverance throughout those 5 years. Just getting knocked down many times, things not going your way, but every day you gotta show up and you gotta keep putting the work in. Like I got it tatted on me on my left arm. So it's funny how I got it tatted on me before like I even like knew like this was gonna happen to me. You know what I mean? So it's just ironic.
I know, listen, I produce content for this audience, for LSU fans, at scale every day and have for 20 years. Like, I know collectively what the LSU fan base thinks, maybe sometimes better than you even know what you think. Because, like, this is literally my professional life every single day is producing content for this audience and has been for 20 years. So I know how people feel. And how people feel about Chris Hilton is that they label his career a disappointment. And I understand that because he came from Zachary, again, in that recruiting class that had so many dynamic receivers. And all you heard from people like me over and over and over again was how great Chris Hilton was and how good he was going to be. And we built him up because he was a great high school player and he came to LSU and he flashed and we saw the big playability early in his career in bowl games. And then throughout that fall camp, like we talked about in 23 and 24, but he got hurt and he just couldn't get back on the field. And then people wondered why in 24 he wasn't getting out there. And they found out later whenever he was healthy, you saw it against Vanderbilt and Oklahoma and Tiger State. You saw it in the bowl game against Baylor. You're like, oh, okay, so y'all weren't lying. That is in there. He really is. But I get it. Like most fans think about Chris Hilton's career as a disappointment. But I also know this. Like, I know this to be true. LSU fans love their own, especially those that love the university. Listen, Shaq's an amazing player, an all-time NBA great. But one of the things LSU fans love so much about Shaq still is not just that he was great. It's that he continues to rep LSU even today. He continues to come back for football games. He continues on social media to always rep LSU and Dale Brown. And every time he has the opportunity, he's wearing an LSU shirt. Like he hasn't forgotten LSU, which makes people here want to just wrap their arms around him even more. That's such a huge part of this state. It's why it extends beyond just LSU. This is not going to sit well with LSU fans, but it's the same with Archie Manning. It's why the city of New Orleans still reveres Archie Manning because he made the decision to live in that city, to raise his family in that city, to raise his boys in that city, and to stay there after he retired. And he continues to give back to everything. Their name is everywhere, all over the city of New Orleans. And so people continue to embrace and love that family because he embraced the area. Same when Drew Brees got to New Orleans post-Katrina, and it's true across the board. So when I heard Chris Hilton say that, like, I'm from 30 minutes from here, I'm going anywhere else. It was never leaving, never even a consideration of leaving. It was all about perseverance, and everything happened the way it was supposed to. It's going to give you a greater respect, admiration, appreciation for what Chris Hilton went through. Listen, I wish for him and for LSU that it was different. I wish he was able to stay healthy and he was able to maximize his physical ability at LSU and have an awesome dynamic career. It just didn't work out. And sometimes it goes that way. And unfortunately for Chris, it did. But he's leaving here with a degree from LSU and a lot of love for the university and hopefully a fan base that's going to continue to support him, because I have a feeling he's going to make an NFL roster and spend a lot of time in the NFL. And that's where I'm going to pick up, because Chris Hilton did something else kind of incredible. He went and played 4 All-Star games. And you're going to hear this from Chris Hilton, his explanation of how that all transpired. And oh, by the way, as he's starting to trend toward the NFL draft. We'll get to that here as we continue. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Dawn Staley and South Carolina remain on top of the SEC standings after handing Tennessee their worst defeat in program history with a final score of 93-40. In the 43-point win, South Carolina shot 69% from the field. Tessa Johnson had a perfect shooting night, scoring 24 points, shooting 4 for 4 from the floor, including 2 threes, and made all 4 of her free throws. And UCLA remains undefeated in Big Ten play, topping Michigan 69-66 as Player of the Year contender Lauren Betts put up a double-double, scoring 16 points, collecting 16 rebounds, and adding 5 assists and 3 blocks. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
I want to dive back into Chris Hilton's draft prep and also get you an update, because Hilton played in the Senior Bowl with Garrett Nussmeier. I want to let you hear what Chris had to say about seeing Nuss get out there and spin it. Hey, I want to remind you, though, and thank you for making Locked on LSU your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, please go check out our new Everydayer Club. Gives you access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On LSU. It's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the podcast apps, and an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes group chat just for listeners of this show. So please tap the link in the show notes if you'd like to learn more. Now, I'm going to get to the conversation about Nuss in just a quick second, but remember, Chris Hilton participated in 4 postseason All-Star games: the Hula Bowl, the American Bowl, the East-West Shrine Game, and finally the Senior Bowl. And he walked me through how that all came about.
Nah, so at first it was originally 3. So once the season was over, I got invited to the first 2, which was Hula American and the Shrine Bowl. And again, I didn't have the production over my career that I wanted to. So I knew I had to go essentially like put myself out there so like, scouts could see me and everything like that. So off rip, I was already going to do all 3. And it's funny you say that, because like a lot of people, when they found out I was doing all 3, you know what I'm saying, you'll get some looks like, you sure you won't do that? Like 3 games is a lot considering, you just played the whole season. Or you worried about getting injured or anything like that. And my whole mindset was just go to work. Like I told myself that every day throughout the whole month of January, wake up, go to work. And so I did the Hula Bowl, did my thing there. Came back to Cali, trained for a week, went to the American Bowl, did that. As soon as the American Bowl was over, hop on the flight to Dallas, got to Dallas, did my thing there, the Shrine Bowl, and then at halftime, right before halftime, I found out I got the invite to the Senior Bowl, and there was like no question that I was doing the Senior Bowl. Because I told myself, I said, bro, if you get the Senior Bowl, you're doing it no matter what. So I got the invite. I filled out the registration for my flight at halftime, went back out, played the game. The next day, I was on a flight to Mobile, and I practiced that same.
How about that? He's playing in the East-West Shrine Game at halftime, finds out he got the invite to the Senior Bowl, and while in the locker room at halftime, fills out the registration and books his flight. Game ends, hops on a flight the next day, goes to Mobile, practices the same day he flies. You want to talk about a dude that wants it? That's a dude that wants it. And by the way, that's a dude that I think is going to go to the combine and crush it, which is sort of the next part of the story, which we're going to get to here in just a quick second, which is there are 11 LSU Tigers invited to the combine. We'll get to that list in a second, but among them, of course, are Chris Hilton and Garrett Nussmeier. Now, Hilton at the Senior Bowl was teammates with Garrett Nussmeier and talked about what it was like to see Nuss get out there and rip it a little bit.
Man, it was good to see. Again, for all of us. Again, we didn't have the season that we wanted to, but just going out there, play freely, and go do what we got to do. Like, it was a sight to see. And he got MVP of the game. So that was nice.
So, and a lot of people have taken notice. Bring up Mel Kiper sometimes, and mostly because people know who Mel Kiper is. But he's just it's one man. It's one man's opinion. But Mel Kiper, after the Senior Bowl, the All-Star games, now after the Super Bowl, has updated his big board. Now, if you're not familiar, the big board is not a mock draft. It's just a ranking of the top 25 players, 1 to 25 overall in the draft, and then the top 10 at each position. Now, before the Senior Bowl, Mel Kiper had Nussmeier rated as his 8th best quarterback. 8th. Now, he has Nussmeier his 5th best quarterback. Now, I'm not telling you should go through a ticker tape parade. But after Fernando Mendoza, he has Ty Simpson, Trinidad Chambliss 3, Drew Aller from Penn State 4, and then Nussmeier 5. Now, I would also like to remind you, Fernando Mendoza, we know, is going to be the number 1 pick of the draft to the Raiders. Trinidad Chambliss, I believe, is going to be playing college football next year. Now, the NCAA is not going to give him a waiver, but he's going to go to court. His attorney, Tom Mars, has already said it. I think he's going to be granted a TRO because that happens for everybody, effectively. So I think he's going to be playing college football next year, Chambliss will. So he won't be in this draft. Remember, Dante Moore was projected to be the 2nd quarterback taken in this draft. Well, he's back at Oregon after they backed up the Brinks truck to his driveway. And then remember, Drew Aller is coming off a season-ending knee injury and surgery. So could he be docked a little bit? All that to say, Mendoza's the clear-cut, no doubt, number 1 quarterback in this draft. He's going to go number 1 overall. But there's a giant question about who the 2nd best quarterback in this draft is going to be and where that player might go. And maybe it'll be Ty Simpson, but I want to remind you that while Ty Simpson was outstanding for the first 2 months of the season at Alabama, the final month of the season for Ty Simpson was not good. And as a result, I think there's a real question as to whether or not he actually will be the guy that's the 2nd quarterback taken in this draft. It could happen that way. I mean, in the bowl, in the playoff game against Indiana in the Rose Bowl, Ty Simpson was 12 of 16 for 67 yards. Let me say that again. Ty Simpson was 12 of 16 for 67 yards. So it was pitiful. The game against Auburn, he was 19 of 35 for a $122. Like, he wasn't good for a month plus at the end of the season. Now, he had some very good performances earlier in the year. But all that to say, after Mendoza, everybody has questions. So Nussmeier has a great opportunity. I would argue that Garrett Nussmeier has as good an opportunity as literally anybody in the draft, considering how high profile he is, the position he plays, and the fact that there was a point where he was a projected first-round pick. I'll remind you, we were in Atlanta for SEC Media Days this past summer, and Jim Nagy, who now is the GM at Oklahoma, the former executive director of the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy told me at SEC Media Days that if his team, if he were the GM at the time of the Tennessee Titans, he would have had Garrett Nussmeier as the number 1 quarterback, not Cam Ward. That water under the bridge, it's all. But just to say, suffice to say, there was an opinion among people in those NFL circles a year ago that Garrett Nussmeier could have been a first-round pick. So my point is, Nuss has this very high ceiling. He's going to go to the combine, and he's going to stand in front of teams, and he's going to X and O on a whiteboard, and he's going to be outstanding because he's a smart player and the son of a coach. And he's super polished, and he's going to ace all the interviews. and they're going to put on the film from 2024 and then look at the Senior Bowl and go, oh, well, what happened to you in 2025? And he's going to have to answer that question. And then he's going to go into the medical, which will be critical for Garrett Nussmeier. And if the team doctors tug on his arm and turn his core and take their images and they're satisfied, I wouldn't be shocked if there's a team late in round one that pulls the trigger on Garrett Nussmeier as the second best quarterback in this draft. Don't think that's not possible for Nussmeier. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying if you're writing off that as a possibility for Garrett Nussmeier to go through this pre-draft process, ace all of this, and race up somebody's draft board, not somebody drafting a starter, but I'll remind you, the Green Bay Packers drafted Jordan Love when they had Aaron Rodgers already playing at an MVP level. Why? They got great value and said, oh, let him sit for a couple of years behind a Hall of Fame quarterback and then take over. It's worked pretty well. Wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the route that Garrett Nussmeier ends up taking in this year's draft. Stay tuned. That Senior Bowl week has already got him elevating. So Hilton and Nussmeier are headed to the combine. There are 9 other Tigers. I'll tell you who they are and who maybe has the most to gain at the combine. We'll get into that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can connect online. They handle everything, W-2s, self-employed forms, and they work to get you every deduction. It is a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. That's TurboTax.com/local. So there are 9 LSU Tigers, well, 11, but 9 in addition to Chris Hilton and Garrett Nussmeier that are going to be participating in the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. They are on offense, Garrett Nussmeier, Aaron Anderson, Barian Brown, the aforementioned Chris Hilton, Xavier Thomas, and Bauer Sharp, who, by the way, on the Mel Kiper big board and position rankings, Bauer Sharp has now cracked the list of the top 10 of fullbacks and H-backs. Now, Sharp played tight end at LSU, remember, but he could project in that H-back role because he did play a lot of that attached and then a sort of detached tight end H-back role. So those are the 6 on offense and then 5 on defense. Patrick Payton, Jack Pyburn, Harold Perkins, Mansour Delane, and then A.J. Halsey. That's the 11 LSU Tigers invited to the combine. If you're wondering, that's tied for the 3rd most players. Texas A&M had 13 invited, Alabama had 12, and then LSU and Ohio State with 11 each. So, of course, Alabama, some of that is a residual from Nick Saban. Texas A&M, a huge hat tip for the job they've done in the transfer portal in that Mike Elko has done there. LSU and Ohio State each with 11 invitees. We already talked about the opportunity that both Chris Hilton and Garrett Nussmeier have. Offensively, I don't know that we're going to see anything outstanding from Aaron Anderson, Barian Brown, or Xavier Thomas, the other 3 receivers. I think they're all very good players. I think Xavier Thomas has shown his versatility. Barian Brown can absolutely fly and will be a high day 2 pick in this draft. Aaron Anderson is an outstanding receiver and great route runner and all those things. His size is going to be the one potential knock on him. But when you talk about a guy with great route running ability and catchability, he is going to be some quarterback's best friend. I've heard our colleague Matt Flynn talk about Aaron Anderson being one of his favorite receivers in this draft, despite the size. And I think that's going to be fascinating. I look defensively, though, and think Harold Perkins is going to be the most intriguing prospect. Look, Patrick Payton and Jack Pyburn are physical specimens that have put out a lot of great tape during their college career. Monsoor Delane could show up to the combine and not do a single workout. He's probably going to be the first cornerback taken. And AJ Halsey, the thing that might be a detriment to him is he may not burn up the clock, but he's a great defensive back at safety. It seems like he's going to be a day 2 pick. The one that is the one to watch is Perkins, because Perkins is kind of a man without a position that is this fascinating character because of his athletic ability. Like, Perkins is going to go blaze the clock. He's going to jump a huge vertical. He's going to run the shuttle and all that stuff, and it is going to be massively impressive. But they're going to look at him and go, he's 6'1", 220 pounds. It's the same thing at LSU. He's not an off-ball linebacker, and when you played him in space, he wasn't necessarily dynamic enough to cover receivers turning and running. And as an edge rusher, he's not big enough to put his hand in the dirt like a Micah Parsons or someone like that. He reminds me so much of Isaiah Simmons when he was coming out of Clemson, a dynamic college player, but that sort of star, that overhang safety hybrid linebacker is just not a position in the NFL because you're going to get matched up and you're going to get exposed. So what NFL team looks at Harold Perkins and says, yep, I know what to do with that? That's something we might start to get some answers to as they go through the combine. Perkins is going to be a fascinating test case in this draft and really for his entire NFL career. We're going to be following it right here on Locked On LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen every single day. And I've mentioned this before, but I'd like to mention it again. If you watch us on YouTube, I'm sincerely grateful that. Please keep watching. If you could help, it would be such a great help if you would also go and subscribe on whatever your favorite podcast app is, Apple, Spotify, whatever. So keep watching on YouTube, but if you could also hit the subscribe button on the podcast, that'd be huge. So if you're on podcast, please subscribe YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked On LSU. It's your team every day.